Hey guys, I hope everyone is fine. Aviation Cadet Sabir Shah, again, ex-Aviation Cadet Sabir Shah here. And obviously my topic is the same, PK8303. Today I want to bring some other things into my viewers' attention. And again, this is about a plane crash that happened unfortunately, and 97 people gave their lives away. So today, actually, my video would be based on the families of the pilot, Captain Sajjad Gul, his family's expressions after the crash. And then one of the victims, one of the victims' guardian, you could say, one of the dads who lost three of his kids and the wife in this crash. I will compare the behavior pattern of these two people, these two families. And the third one would be of the survivors, those who survived the airplane, only two survivors. And I would compare their statements and then some of the eyewitnesses who saw this thing happening. So altogether with four segments in the same part. I tried to be as short as I can because I think these things were portrayed on Pakistani media in Urdu language and they were never shown to the people who were actually concerned. Now, at least through all these famous analysts like Mentor Pilot, my mentor too, and Branco Lario, and all others who have actually posted really nice videos on this one based on the initial report and the final report made by some people who just wanted some propaganda to be spread, and they did it successfully because these analysts, they bought it. No conspiracy theories involved. Even till to the day, I think the report is incomplete. So let's go to the segment one, which is going to be the testimonies, the statements of the parents after the incident. Um, if you don't understand any contents of the videos, please just put the subtitles to English, and the YouTube AI is gonna do that for you. I don't need to put subtitles at the bottom of the video. Just by a click, right top, there's a button CC. So if you press that one, even in any language which is recognized by international, world, it's going to be translated into your native language. And more or less, it's almost the same meaning. If there is any ambiguity, then just ask me the question. Ask me questions in the comment box below. So this dad and his brother-in-law, two of them, they're actually very emotional after the death of for a dad losing a child, no matter how old the child was. Captain Sajjad was in his mid-50s. And for him, for the dad, he's of course a child. And in Pakistani families, dads and moms are the last ones to know the actions of their bad actions of their kids, because parents always have a trust in their kids, because that they would not do anything bad outside. Even if you ask any a serial killer, murderer, ask his parents the point of view about his son or daughter, he would say, oh, he was one of the best people in the world. So we can take that this is out of emotions. I totally take that. For me, it's not a big deal to accept any reality, any fact. So these statements are emotional statements. And probably none of them is true, or some of them is true. But what's true in this whole statement is that Mr. Sajjad Gul had a clean record about the aircraft emergencies, handling with them. He was alive, of course, after flying 15,000 hours. That's one of the proofs. And he had no reported incidents in the past. Otherwise, that would have been mentioned right away in the report. So that thing, we have to take it out, that he was an immaculate pilot and he was too very loyal to his profession. We could take that one. And a pilot doesn't want to die. Okay, so if this incident ended up in a fatal incident, well, he didn't mean to do it. Okay, by all means, I would say that I'm not exonerating him again because I've given the disclaimer in my previous video that all the miscalculations, you have to put responsibility on the pilot, period. But his background was clear. He had a clean slate in the history. That's one thing.
It was an ordinary day. I knew my wife and kids had to go the next day to Karachi. I didn't know they were going, but I know बस अंदर से कुछ था. So those 3 months with my kids was an intensive course. I dropped them at the airport, just like you would do normally, which every Pakistani does normally every day. ठीक है ना? Airport पे छोड़ा, you expect कि यार the people you're trusting, they will get your family or your loved ones across to the point of कहते हैं जहाँ पे जाना चाह रहे हैं in safety. I had no idea. I hugged them goodbye at the airport. I went back to the office expecting call कि यार आरिफ मैं पहुँच गई. तो हुआ ये कि जिस टाइम पे उसकी कॉल आनी थी, मेरी अम्मी बहू की कॉल आई कि फौजिया किस एयरलाइन से गई हुई है. मतलब क्यों खैरियत, कहते हैं एक प्लेन जो है वो क्रैश हो गया. एंड उस टाइम पे आई कैन नॉट बिगन टू टेल यू व्हाट हैपेंड. इट वाज लाइक द होल वर्ल्ड काइंड ऑफ स्टॉप्ड. ठीक है ना, आई वाज इन शॉक. और उसके बाद फ़ोन बंद हुआ है. उसके बाद मैं बस खड़ा रहा 5 मिनट के लिए. मेरे साथ एक कॉलीग था तो आके मुझे हिलाया थोड़ा सा. तो मैं कि प्लीज़ जस्ट लाइक गिव मी 1 सेकंड, लेट मी कंपोज माई सेल्फ. ठीक है ना, मैं खड़ा रहा. इट वाज लाइक माई होल के द लाइफ वाज सक्ड आउट ऑफ मी. लेकिन उस टाइम पे आई थिंक आई हैड एक्सेप्टेड कि देयर आर नो मोर. मैं मम डैड को ये कह रहा था कि देखें ये जो न्यूज़ और में दिखा रहे हैं कि पॉपुलेटेड एरिया में गिरा है, ये पाकिस्तान है और ये पॉपुलेटेड एरिया में गिरा है. और मैं गया सीधा अपने ब्रदर इन लॉ के साथ मॉर्ग्स के अंदर. अब मॉर्ग्स के अंदर द थिंग इज़ कि इनके आई थिंक पहले दिन सही काम नहीं कर रहा था एंड बॉडीज़ वर जस्ट थ्रोन देयर बिकॉज इट्स नॉट बिल्ट कि ना इतने सारे बॉडीज़ और एक साथ इकट्ठा कोई हैंडल कर सकें. ठीक है ना, कोई नीचे पड़ा हुआ है, उधर पड़ा हुआ है, इधर पड़ा हुआ है. ठीक है ना, बेरहमती हुई हुई है फुल. और फैमिलीज़ को कहा जा रहा है कि ये देखो ये तस्वीरें हैं, डेड बॉडीज़ की तस्वीरें, इसमें किसी को पहचान रहे हैं आप. ठीक है, उसका जब उसमें से नहीं पता चल रहा तो हम लोग अंदर जाके एक एक बॉडी चेक किए. Now imagine knowing it's your wife and kids over there and you're looking at each and every body. Yeah, I identified my wife through a ring that I given her one night before. Her feet, ठीक है ना, her face. But that's not something that I would have wanted to see, but I was pushed to. उसके बाद I was trying to look for my other kids, लेकिन the bodies were so charred and disfigured कि मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा था. There was like blood and pus everywhere और पता नहीं क्या कहते हैं, स्मेल जो है अनबेरेबल. ठीक है ना. एंड फिर एक ईदी वाला आया, कहता है अपने ज़रा बच्चों की तस्वीरें और दिखाएं, हो सकता है मैं कोई आपकी हेल्प कर दूँ. 10 बच्चों की तस्वीरें दिखाएं. कहते नहीं ये जो बड़ी बेटी है ना आपकी, मुझे लगता है कि मैं इसके कपड़े वगैरह कहीं देखा, मैं दिखाता हूँ. जाके दिखाया तो वो मेरी बेबी जो है ना वो इस तरह हुई थी, यूँ करके ना, यूँ हुई थी. और दुपट्टा अपना 3 दफ़ा गले की तरफ पहनती थी, वो पहनी हुई थी. हाथ के अंदर बैंड्स थे उसके. और कपड़े उसके जो है वो जिस तरह आग के पास कोई चीज़ रखें तो वो फेड हो रहे थे ना, उस तरह था. तो पैटर्न बड़ा सारा नज़र आ रहा था. एंड यू वाज माई बेबी. आई लुक्ड एट हर फीट, आई लुक्ड एट हर हैंड्स एंड आई वांटेड टू टच हर बट आई कुडंट. तो उस टाइम पे मैं लगा हुआ था मिशन पे. ठीक है ना, आई हैड कन्वर्टेड माई पेन इनटू अ मिशन. जो उसके बावजूद मैं 2 महीने यहाँ पे रहा हूँ टू हेल्प दीज पीपल आउट. आई डिड नॉट वांट देम टू गो थ्रू द सेम ट्रामा आई वाज गोइंग इन एंड दैट हेल्प मी डील विद माई ट्रामा बाय हेल्पिंग दोज पीपल आउट. तो वी क्रिएटेड अ सेपरेट सिस्टम. ठीक है ना. तो एक तरफ से मैं लोगों से उसी ग्रुप के अंदर से दोज आर द पीपल हु बिकेम वॉलंटियर्स. दे फॉरगॉट देयर पेन एंड दे स्टार्टेड हेल्पिंग अदर पीपल. सो तो वो हीलिंग वाली चीज़ थी ना, तो वो उनके अंदर भी आई थी हीलिंग वाली चीज़. तो रात को मैं बैठता था, तस्वीरें वगैरह निकालता था, वीडियोस निकालता था. एंड आई यूज्ड टू बी क्राइंग फॉर 40 डेज़. रात को बैठ के मैं काम कर रहा होता था, कुछ पोस्ट कर रहा हूँ, ये कर रहा हूँ, ट्राइंग टू फिगर आउट कि सिस्टम किस तरह का है, किसको करना है, क्या करना है, स्ट्रैटेजाइज करना है. आई वाज पुटिंग माई वाइफ के पिक्स, माई उसके किड्स. आई यूज्ड टू बी लाइक क्राइंग. बस आपके आंसू निकल रहे होते थे. आई यूज्ड टू बी लाइक टाइपिंग. एंड उस टाइम पे इसलिए कर रहा था, आई डिडंट वांट माई पेरेंट्स टू सी मी क्राइंग. I needed to grieve. I could not keep that inside. I could not sleep. 2-3 घंटे बाद फिर मैं उठ जाता था. ठीक है ना. तो अगर आप एक्सेप्ट कर लें ये चीज़ होगी है, ठीक है ना, थोड़ा सा आपको ये हो जाएगा ठीक है, नाउ देयर इन अ बेटर प्लेस. आई नो आई सॉ माई वाइफ एंड किड्स इन दैट स्टेट, लेकिन आई वाज लाइक दिस इज़ देयर वर्ल्डली रिमेन्स, दे आर हैप्पी अप देयर. तो वो जब गिल्ट के अंदर जाता है ना, काश मैं ये कर लेता यार, कहीं टायर पंचर हो जाता, ये हो जाता, फ्लाइट मिस हो जाती. ठीक है ना, इस तरह की चीज़ें लोग सोचते हैं. ये सबसे बड़ी ख़राबी होती है जिस टाइम पे आपका ये इस मोड़ पे चले जाए ना आपका दिमाग, देन यूर डन फॉर। उस टाइम पे आपको कंट्रोल की ज़रूरत है कि आपको बताएं इट्स।
So this gentleman, I have 3 daughters too, and I can't imagine what he went through when he lost. He just said goodbye to them, and then he lost these 3 beautiful gems of his family and his wife, of course, fourth one. And I can't imagine to go through that trauma he actually went through. So his interview, most of the parts are in English, so I think I'm really nice English he's speaking. But look at this, how he converted his negative energy into positive energy, and how the loss he bore, he used that negative energy in a sense that, of course, you get, frustrated, you ask questions that why didn't this happen, why the wheels didn't get punctured and they would have delayed and they wouldn't have gone on the fly, and that's it. He accepted from day one whatever has happened. Acceptance is the key to move on, which in Sajjad Gul's parents' case, and I don't believe them as well for that. Some people can't move on. It's a trauma, and people react in different ways after something happens to them. But I would appreciate the way this gentleman has taken, and hopefully that people in Captain Sajjad Gul and the first officer family and all the crew members, everyone who lost their beloved ones in this incident, they find peace. But this is the way that you move on and you start to do something for the ones who are suffering. Now let's get to the testimonies of the only survivors, 2 of them. One of them was sitting on the seat 8F, which is in front of the wing, right in front of the upper economy class, and right in front of the emergency exit in front of the wing. And we're sitting in business class on the left side of the airplane, and somehow these two, his seat fell off. Don't know how. He also doesn't know, he can't recall it. And the other survivor, when she said that, because he was up, awake, when he saw everything being crashed, and he jumped off the wings. And by the way, on the ground there was a child who actually, right on that day, confirmed on Pakistani media that he did see a person jumping off the wing.
उधर से वो राणा से छलांग भी मारी थी। क्या हुआ था? राणा से उसने छलांग भी मारती है। राणा हॉल से।
राणा हॉल से?
जी।
क्यों?
छलांग मारती जहाँ से।
Johar Hall. So probably it's a wedding hall, used for wedding purposes, and that's where he jumped off. According to that kid, the wings of the aircraft hit a mosque's tower first, and then a deputy superintendent police officer's house, which was taller than the other houses. Of course, the bureaucrat in Pakistan, so he can do anything what he wants. Are you getting my point?
ये फरियाल के दरख्त से टकरा के
फरियाल कौन है?
ये फरियाल मस्जिद है ना, उधर से टकराया, फिर हमारे उधर जो डीएसपी का घर है उधर भी टकराया, फिर उधर से आके इधर आया, फिर यू है, फिर उसके इंजन गड़गड़ होने लगा, फिर वो इधर आके गिर गया अंकल।
अच्छा, जहाज कैसा दिख रहा था तुम लोगों को? जब तुम लोग देख रहे थे जहाज को तो तुम्हें कैसा लग रहा था?
हिल रहा था वो जहाज, पीछे से आग निकलते वाली जो जहाज हिल रहा था। तो फिर हम मैट बॉल खेल रहे थे ना, तो पीछे अजूबा हिलते हुए आ रहा, हमारे डीएसपी के रोड घर में टकरा के फिर हिला, फिर इंजन खत्म हुआ, पता नहीं क्या हुआ, फिर आगे नजर भी नहीं आ रहा था, कुछ नजर भी नहीं, कुछ अंधेरा हो गया था।
DSP, a Deputy Superintendent Police, is a powerful person in bureaucracy in Pakistan, and his house was taller than the others. And I'm not saying that because of the tower of the mosque, because of the DSP house, this plane ended up in a crash. Now, the plane was almost, I would say, 100 feet lower than to clear this area. Even if these two things were not there, these two, the minaret of the mosque and the DSP house, taller house, 4-story house, was not there, the plane would still be on this population. Because the height was not enough to be cleared. But again, these buildings, this area in front of the landing threshold, shouldn't have been there in the first place. But no one is questioning that one. You know, this is the Karachi City Cantonment Board. They should be questioned why these buildings were given permission to have these, triple-story houses in that area. But the report doesn't say about that thing. No one talks about that one. But these are the things which actually did that. Imagine if this area was without any population, this plan would have landed. But why would you allow right under the landing strip where you are going for the approach towards the runway, and imagine there are 2 or 3 or 4-story and the mosques with huge long tall towers, and this was meant to happen someday. The place where I used to live in was now Nur Khan base, or Benazir Bhutto Islamabad airport, the old one. Our houses were located on the left and right side of the landing gliding. I'm 49 now, and till to the day, none of the planes have hit any of the buildings around. And still to the day, we can't have the 4th story on, even we're on the sides of the runway, or the population is on the sides. But yeah, we can't have the 4th story on our houses. And it has been observed for at least 49 years of my age. But in Karachi, it was a little bit different. But anyhow, these are now beating the bush. Now, the testimony of the first survivor, now he is also in elite class, and he is a bureaucrat. He's the president of Punjab Bank. That's why he had been called for many interviews on TV. The other guy, he seems like a normal business person, probably running a store or anything, okay? I'm not judging by their job, but that's what has happened. So the elite class guy was invited for many TV shows, and by the way, after the recovery, when he recovered fully. Otherwise, there are no on-the-spot videos of his, none. I tried to find, but not try to find, because I told you I was into this incident. So he was kept, away from common people. Hey, you stay away. We are the ones. I'm telling you, this is my perception, so I would give more points on that one. So what happened here? After a few months, the guy, the president of Punjab Bank, was called for many. Now let's get to the statements. So Mr. Elite Class, his statement after recovering, okay? Now his first statement
also took off early that day. The flight was very smooth, but when it tried to land on Karachi airport the first time, there was one bump, and then there was a second bump, and then there was a third bump at the landing. So there were 3 times that the engine touched the runway. By the time you could have reacted or thought about anything, the flight actually took back up again in the air. Since I was on the first seat, I don't know what was happening in the rest of the cabin, but I could see that the air hostesses were panicking. They started reciting Quranic verses. Few minutes later, a steward also came and sat right next to me across the aisle, and he also seemed panicked. And then the plane took back up, and then it took a round, and when it was coming back again, there was a kind of a jerk. Since I was in the first seat, I could see the cockpit door opening. I could see from the windscreen, it appeared that the plane was nosediving. And at that time, maybe half a minute, 30 seconds ahead of.
Oh, the flight was very smooth. 1. Everything was fine. 2. The weather was good. 3. We landed normally. Now, this was common throughout, with the statement of the second survivor as well. So whatever happened before, the aircraft crossed 13.7 degrees of pitch down and, pulled up and down. At least 2 of the passengers didn't feel anything. Nothing they felt, anything out of normal. So, which proves my point too, that they didn't cross any of the aircraft limitations or any of the aviational limitations. No negative G's, I mean, not putting it down so quickly that you fly up and, hit the. That happens in many cases, but in this case, that didn't happen. And these two, both of them, they confirmed that. It means everything was going smoothly until the touchdown. And at the touchdown, this Mr. Elite President of Punjab Bank, he confirms that it bumped up and down 3 or 4 times. That's what he said initially. And then it went off again, took off again. And he said that it kept circulating. Now, I don't know what he meant by that it did take a second round and the third round. And they said finally we were told that we were going to land, and by that time he knew the whole life came in front of him.
Not be avoided. It's crashing. He said, yes, the plane is crashing. It's not your time. And by the time this whole conversation was going on, the entire life of mine was in front of me like on a canvas. As expected, the plane crashed, and I could see that the plane was wobbling. When I fainted, I just passed out. And then when I got the consciousness, I was already been rescued. People were already taking me out of the rebels. That tough period, I don't remember at all. These are all third-party account what happened. I really have no recollection of what actually happened. Some people say that my seat just fell off. It fell on the rooftop, and then from there to the car bonnet, and there were people sitting in the car, and then those people rescued me and took me out.
Whatever those guys, even those the TV evangelists, when they say when I saw the light and the whole life came in front of me, that kind of things. And the guy, he can talk, he can speak, because a bureaucrat is selected after the exams of CSS, and they have the ability to talk. So he knew what he's saying, which in the second video I would show you, and you would see that the words he used and the correction of the data, even the report was not finalized.
Very, very unfortunate accident. But, it seems like, it was pilot ka error. National Airlines flight PK 8303 from Lahore to Karachi. When the plane crashed into the suburbs of Karachi a few hours later, I was one of the only 2 survivors. Contrary to popular depictions of crashes like these, there was no sense of impending doom when I first got on the plane. I was heading home after my 6 weeks at the helm of affairs of the Bank of Punjab. Both exhausted and thrilled by how well this time had gone and the prospects of seeing my family for the celebrations of Eid. The flight was entirely smooth until it was time to land, as we were hurling towards the airport landing strip at breakneck speed. As we descended, the plane grazed the runway, skidding over the tarmac 3 times before taking off again. At that time, I remember being wary, but I did not fully understand what had happened. It was only later, when I riffled through the news reports about the incident, that I understood that the aircraft had been placed on the runway with its landing gear pulled back up right before the landing and cruising along its engines at a speed of more than 200 miles per hour. Air traffic control had apparently warned the crew that it was higher than the required descent profile when it crossed the city of Makli. We were at 9,780 feet instead of the required 3,000. The Karachi approach reportedly advised the pilot repeatedly to do an orbit to lower altitude slowly, but he continued the landing approach. Alarmed by its rapid descent, air traffic control told the pilot to go back up again. And 1,740 feet from the ground, he decided to abandon the first attempt and retracted the landing gear. This was bizarre. An aircraft as sophisticated as Airbus has multiple warning systems, alerting crew if the landing gear is not released so close to the runway. Flight crew are trained to follow rigorous checklists before making a descent. It was arrogance to disregard these warnings. I was seated in first row. To my right, across the aisle, there was a steward. In front of me, 2 air hostesses. When the flight crew, trained to maintain a stoic facade, begins to unravel, you know that something is wrong. They were crying and reciting verses from the Holy Quran. The plane circled back for another landing attempt. This time, engines stopped working, but no distress was announced. I cannot explain how unnerving complete silence in an aircraft that is still suspended in the air and all its engines and auxiliary power units grind to a halt. The cockpit's door flew open and I saw chaos beyond. It seemed like the plane was going to nosedive. In those 30 seconds, I knew that we were going to crash. I did take stock of my life very quickly in those 30 seconds, and my conscience was clear. But the voice inside me told me that I was going to survive. I remember being completely involved in an argument with this voice. As a single man, by the way, I often talk to myself, so nothing new for me as such, even at that terrible time. I told my...
He knew exactly the heights of the aircraft and when the gears were down, when the gears were gotten up. Now imagine that people didn't have that data back then, but this guy, he already had it. But what I'm saying is that he used everything beautifully. The thing he missed, what he said that, now in his other interviews later in the future, in that time future, the things he missed, but in his first interview, what he said, this is a key point. He said that after the first go-round, when they came for the next landing, for the final where it crashed, 30 seconds prior to the crash, he knew that we were going to crash. And how he knew? The first thing he said, the cockpit door went boom.
The cockpit door opening. I could see from the windscreen, it appeared that the plane was nosediving. And at that time, maybe half a minute, 30 seconds ahead of the crash.
That happens in movies, right? When the airplane is literally going down and, things are flying out and windows got broken and, seats falling out. He brought that scenario in his first interview. He said, the cockpit door got open, which never happens because we know how secure the cockpit door is after 911 incident. And if there is something like that, if the cockpit door was opened by the flight attendants or the stewards, then it should have been mentioned in the final report. But there's no conversation of the flight members, the crew members with the pilots, only once when they offer the snacks. Now, the door cannot be opened. The second thing he said that he saw the plane was going down. Okay. Now, if you see the videos of the crash, 2 videos are circulating. And in both the videos, you could see very clearly that the plane was in landing mode, which means the plane was nose up and the rear gears were down. It was nose up. And he saw through the cockpit, through the open door, through the cockpit, that the plane was going down into the buildings. Now, tell me, even if you sit on a seesaw, and once you are at the bottom position, what do you see? If your concentration is on your opponent, the other person sitting on the other side, you will see the sky. And he's sitting on an Airbus A320, and he's sitting on the first class seats, and the cockpit door opens, let's suppose. What would he see? He would see the sky. He wouldn't see the ground. There's the plane's tail hit the wings, hit the minarets and the houses first, and the tail went in, and then finally was the cockpit that hit the residential area, because everything is well laid by the people from. This what I was saying that on MFI 17 we used to sit side by side, and the instructor pilot and the student pilot, and on T-37 as well, the seats were arranged side by side. But on K-8s we had the tandem seat arrangements. So initially in the area FAM, the first 3 missions, I remember very clearly that the student pilot was sitting at the back cockpit, at the back. And trust me, when we used to come for landing for first 2 or 3 missions, I couldn't see the runway from the cockpit view. Now, this could be the fulcrum position as well, but what I'm saying is that no matter where you are sitting on an airplane, even you're sitting in a cockpit on an Airbus A320, and you are almost 100 feet above ground level, you would not be able to see the runway under you. There's no possibility of that because of the slope, the angle of the aircraft against this one. So this person was lying, totally lying. Now, because he was in trauma, he was in distress, I don't think so. He just made up a story after the crash, and he didn't expose himself to the media as the other boy did, the other guy who survived. Now, the second survivor. I have seen his statement from the deathbed when he was taken into the hospital. Same. I went and saw his statement after a week, the same, third week.
जैसे ये स्टार्ट हुआ है, वहाँ से प्लेन फ्लाई हुआ है, टेक ऑफ हुआ है, उसके बाद जो है बिल्कुल सही स्मूथली चल रही थी, जिस तरह नॉर्मल फ़्लाइट्स चल रही होती हैं। तो जब हम जिना इंटरनेशनल एयरपोर्ट पहुँचने वाले थे तो उस वक्त जो है एक अनाउंसमेंट हुई है कि मैं जहाज़ जो है वो लैंड करने लगा हूँ। तो लैंडिंग के लिए सब रेडी हो गए थे। जैसे ही उन्होंने लैंडिंग के लिए रनवे पे उतारा है जहाज़, तो वो एकदम से जर्क किया, उसने झटका मारा है, 2-3 दफ़ा वो ऊपर नीचे हुआ जहाज़। उसके बाद वो रनवे पर आ गया। रनवे पर आने के बाद जो है वो थोड़ा सा मूव हुआ है। मूव होने के बाद वो रुका नहीं है। अब आई डोंट नो उसके अंदर जहाज़ का मसला था या उसके अंदर टायर नहीं खुले या क्या हुआ है, लेकिन जो पायलट साहब थे उन्होंने बड़ी होशियारी के साथ उसको दोबारा हवा में उड़ा दिया। दोबारा उड़ाया, उन्होंने बड़ी कोशिश की है उस वक्त भी रोकने की, लेकिन उन्होंने जब वो नहीं रुका तो उन्होंने दोबारा उसको फ्लाई कर दिया। फ्लाई करने के बाद 10 से 15 मिनट जो है वो ऊपर उसको उड़ाते रहे हैं। उड़ाने के बाद उसके दरमियान कोई अनाउंसमेंट नहीं हुई है कि इसके अंदर ख़राबी है या इसका इंजन काम नहीं कर रहा या इसके टायर नहीं खुले या कोई ऐसी चीज़ नहीं थी। उसके बाद 10-15 मिनट बाद दोबारा उन्होंने अनाउंसमेंट की है कि जी मैं लैंड करने लगा हूँ। उस वक्त भी सब लैंडिंग के लिए रेडी थे। जैसे ही उन्होंने लैंडिंग का कहा, सब रेडी थे। जैसे ही लैंड करने लगे, अनफॉर्चुनेटली वो क्रैश हो गया। जैसे ही वो बिल्डिंग के अंदर हिट हुआ है या किसी जगह के अंदर हिट हुआ है, हिट होने के बाद वो बेंगलोर के ऊपर गिर गया। जो वहाँ घर थे मॉडल कॉलोनी में, उनके ऊपर गिर गया। तो जैसे ही हिट हुआ, हिट होने से जो है वो अंदर पूरे जहाज़ में आग लग गई है। आग लगने के बाद जो है वो स्मोक, अंधेरा, अंदर कुछ नहीं नज़र आ रहा था, कोई बंदा नहीं नज़र आ रहा था, सिर्फ चीखो पुकार सुनाई दे रही थी बस। तो अल्लाह का बहुत शुक्र था कि मेरी जो सीट थी वो वहीं अपनी जगह स्टैंड थी। तो मैंने जो है वो इधर उधर देखा है, तो मैंने अपना सीट बेल्ट खोला है। सीट बेल्ट खोल के मुझे हल्की सी एक रोशनी नज़र आई अपनी बैक साइड पे, राइट साइड पे, क्योंकि मेरी विंडो सीट थी, 8F मेरी सीट थी। बैक साइड पे मैंने देखा तो रोशनी नज़र आई है। मैंने कोशिश की उस रोशनी की तरफ जाने की और मैं वहाँ जाने में कामयाब हुआ। वहाँ जाने के बाद मैं विंग के ऊपर आया। विंग के ऊपर थोड़ा चल के मैंने 10 फीट के नीचे जंप की है। जंप करने के बाद मैं बाहर चला गया।
Later, the same. Even after 6 months later, when he almost got recovered, the same statement. And the guy was also under trauma, and he escaped the death. But what he said, the only thing, he praised the pilot. He said that we came normally, and we landed, and then we felt a few bumps, and then the aircraft couldn't stop. That was his first statement, by the way. He had no, he was under this trauma, and he was fainted in the hospital when he woke up. He had no relation to the outer world or the media or anything. He had no input in source that could give him the news of what has happened. His own words were that the plane, when it hit the runway, and he could feel that pilot can't stop it. So he said that with a smartness, with a witness, right, got up and he took off again. And then the second account, he said that they were told that they're going to land in Malheur, Kent, in there's an area before the runway 25L or R. That's a basically leveled area where the pilot was landing, and that is almost 90 degrees to the what you call to the runway. As you could see in the map, these are his words, and he said on two accounts. But I would give that one because at that time the aircraft was too high and they had no way to lose the power or give the power. So there was no way that it was too high, hot and high again the second time. So that's why he continued the landing approach towards the runway. And that's where it hit the model town. But he said very clearly that 40, 50 seconds before the crash, there was another announcement made. And that was that we are going to land, and all the crew members, and that was recorded in the final report. But the first statement was not recorded, which this man who was on the deathbed has claimed, and none of them has been reported anywhere else. So what I'm trying to say over here is that the pilot did try to land at a place which is empty, and that's where he also asked about where is the Faisal base, although Faisal base is on the opposite side of the runway, which everyone knows. Why would he ask when he's coming for 25L? He knows he has been flying 15,000 hours and he has been flying from Lahore to Karachi like 1,000 times or 2,000 or maybe more than that. He would not ask about Faisal base at that point. He would have asked that at the point when he just took off again, go around again, because that's where the Faisal base is, located on your left side on around 240, 230 heading. This call from that time has been picked and put it in where the crash happened before that, to show that the pilot was disorientated, to show that he was fasting. That's dishonesty. Anyone, if you are in your house and you've been going there every day to the toilet, even when you're drunk, when you are whatever you are, you know where your bathroom is. Of hardly a few times you find the the fridge. But remember that joke when the wife says, when the husband comes, hey, the bathroom door is very strange. He said, why? He said, well, when I open the door, the light turns on. When I close it, the light turns off. So she punches him and says, dude, you were peeing in the fridge again. Apart from those drunkards, yeah, most of the times we know. It's the same thing, perception. Once it's built, you know where this place is, where are the safety areas and stuff like that. So he probably would have asked, and now the pilot sits on the left side of the window and the first officer sits on the right side. This is a rule in Pakistan. So captain sits on the left side and the first officer sits on the right side. So if he was on the left, now once he's 180 degree opposite on the right hand downwind, he would not ask the first officer, where is the runway? The first officer is sitting on the right side, which is away from the runway, and he can't see unless he climbs over the captain, and goes and sees like that. No. So these testimonies also prove that things told to us in that bogus report did not happen in that order, at least, or in that sequence at least. And the people who were responsible for that were never pointed out. So this was my whole video for today. Hope to see you again. Thank you.